Good Friday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns training camp gets underway about a month. This is from Pro Football Network. Head coaching power rankings that they sent out. We got Andrew Reid 1, Bill Belichick 2, Mike Tomlin 3, John Harbaugh 4. Kevin Stefanski is at 20, just below Dan Campbell and Frank Reich, ahead of Brandon Staley and Kevin O'Connell. Interestingly enough, Zach Taylor, who was at the AFC Championship game last year in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, is 15th. So, again, young coaches in that, and Kevin Stefanski 20th in the NFL. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And G. Bush, after a couple of 500 and below 500 seasons, I guess 20th is probably fair. It's time for Kevin Stefanski and the Browns to start winning.
Yeah, middle of the road. It's what I expected for a long period of time. It's when you talk about Deshaun Watson, when you're talking about, specifically Kevin Stefanski, one of the things that generally happens is you get those guys that are around 20, they're around 19, 20, 15, somewhere in that area. And the reason it's like that is because they've been inconsistent. The Browns have been, the talk of the town, so to speak, all off season for the last couple of years. They made some big splash, guys and signings. And just when you thought the Browns were going to turn the corner and do something, they've just regressed. So, Kevin Stefanski has shown that he can be a good coach in this league, given what he did in his starting with Baker Mayfield and being able to just basically navigate those waters. I thought he did an okay job last year with, Jacoby Brissett, but he's yet to show what he can do with a high-end type quarterback that can make a lot of throws and that can make plays and that can really, essentially make plays outside of the offense. That's what, superstar quarterbacks can do. When things break down, they can make plays, they can run the ball, they can scramble the audible at the line of scrimmage. So he hasn't shown that he's been able to be effective with a guy like that in Deshaun Watson. So anxious to see that. But it's feast or famine. I think this year could be a really great year for Kevin Stefanski. I think if they make the playoffs, I think he'll get extended. I think he'll get, especially if they get 11, 12 wins. I think if they could get that many wins, I think Kevin Stefanski is going to be here for another 4 years. Or the thought that I don't want to really think about too much is the thought guess what? What if Stefanski and Barry struggle out of the gates? Browns struggle. They get off to a 1-5, 2-4, 2-5, 2-6 start. Then you're going to be looking around and we're going to be talking about a rebuild, which is something I don't want to see at all. We went through the 1-15, 0-16 to get these players. People forget we got Myles Garrett first overall because we were 0-1-16 or whatever the case may be. We got a Nick Chubb. We got a Denzel Ward. We drafted those individuals because we were so terrible. Now that we've actually hit on those guys, we know they can play. I'm not trying to reset it again, and we start talking about draft picks and where we go from here and cap purgatory and all that good stuff. So, yeah, it could be a feast or famine, and I'm hoping it's feast.
I'm with you. Do not want to see another rebuild for several years. All right. This is kind of interesting. Kenny Pickett, Steelers quarterback, in 13 games versus Deshaun Watson in 6 after a 700-day layoff. Games with 2+ touchdown passes, Watson 2, Pickett none. Games with 3 interceptions, Watson none, Pickett 2. Touchdown percentage, Watson 4.1%, 19th in the NFL. Pickett 1.8%, 33rd in the NFL. Now, when you look at that and you hear all of the excitement about Kenny Pickett, that kind of puts it in numbers. You can't argue. You could argue with the numbers, but the numbers are the numbers. Kenny Pickett, yeah, he's a rookie. Yeah, he'll get better. I'm not sure he's a high-end quarterback.
No.
I am sure he's not. He's not a high-end quarterback.
We like you said, we were laughing before the show. We've seen Kenny Pickett before.
Yeah, we've had him for several years. Too many years.
Austin Davises of the world, the Cody Kesslers, and the guys. Hey, listen, we've even had Kenny Pickett's with strong arms and Deshaun Kaiser. Listen, man, we know all about bad quarterback play. Leave it up to us. We should actually start our own consulting firm here in the city of Cleveland. We actually go tell your quarterbacks if they're pretenders or contenders. And guess what? We ain't seen many contenders, but we saw a lot of pretenders. We can tell you who's on the up and up and who ain't. And he is not one of those guys. We are not scared. Actually, to be truthful, I would like to not see Mitch Trubisky. I don't want to see their backup quarterback because Kenny Pickett is a guy who check down Charlie. He's not going to be putting fear in your heart. Does not have a tremendous rifle where he can get it all over the field. And he's going to need to lean on the offensive line, play calling, and the running game. And that's fine if you want to be at a certain level. But even the Cleveland Browns realize you have very, very small room for error in terms of whether or not you can compete if you don't have a quarterback. And Kenny Pickett may be a nice guy, maybe a solid dude, but if you're talking about whether he is a Ben Roethlisberger or a Terry Bradshaw, no, he's more of a Bubby Brister. He's a Bubby Brister.
You want to know the best thing he has going for him? Mike Tomlin's his head coach. That's the best thing Kenny Pickett has going for him. All right, Amari Cooper's touchdown by years. This is kind of interesting. So you see 6 in his first year, 5, 7, 7, 8, 5. 8 in 2021, 9 last year. The question becomes, could a full season with Deshaun Watson set him atop the NFL in 2023? I think that's possible. I think Elijah Moore is going to have a pretty good year too, though.
Hey, I tell you what. See, this is the tricky thing. If you told me, if they say, G. Bush, what's a hot take? My hot take could be there's 3 different receivers on the roster that could lead the team in receiving. Yep. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, or Amari Cooper. And the reason I say that is because none of them have been around Deshaun Watson enough. We know what happens when you get an elite quarterback. When Julian Edelman came into the league, Tom Brady was like, for some reason, was like, oh, I like him. When Gronk came into the league, for some reason, Tom was like, hey, that's the guy right there, right? Every quarterback has that dude that they kind of go and feel out and say, okay, well, this is my go-to guy on this play, down and distance. I'm on this field, on this hash. I would like this guy. I like this throw. Deshaun Watson's only played 6 games, so we don't know who he's developed that chemistry with. But I'm going to tell you about Amari Cooper. There's a lot of people, and I always caution fans to do this. Listen, I know that the NFL does really good at making everything a 24-hour news cycle. And they give you these talking points, and you just take it and eat it up, and you just go with it. There's this narrative that automatically Amari Cooper is getting cut next year. And I'm like, listen, if Amari Cooper comes out and he puts up 11, 12, 13 touchdowns, and he's over 1,400 yards, I mean, come on. He had 1,100 last year, and Jacoby Brissett was throwing them the football. If he has that amount of production, it is not a foregone conclusion that they're going to, get rid of him because they got new guys in the wing. Listen, this is a reset season. We will see after this season who really emerges as the number one, the guy what the offense looks like, what they like to run. Because guess what? We really haven't seen anything like that at the end of last year. He was a little banged up, but be truthful, all he did is probably go out and have one of his best years as a pro with a backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett when he had a bunch of talent in Dallas. I'm not so sure that you're going to get rid of an Amari Cooper because I think he's poised for another really good season, and I don't think the Browns are going to be running apart with that if Deshaun Watson feels like he's his number one guy. No,
the thing, keep in mind, Amari Cooper was injured with a core muscle injury that we didn't know about as well, and he put up those numbers. You might see a restructured contract where he gets a big signing bonus, and he gets more money, and you lessen the cap hit, and you deal with it whenever you have to. That might happen if he has a big year, but I'm with you. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he gets cut. This from Jake Trotter, ESPN, about Elijah Moore. 19th ranked among receivers his rookie season with an average separation, 3.41 yards target. Even though all his struggles last season, he still ranked 32nd in separation, 3.09. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper, both ranked outside the top 70. And for a guy like Deshaun Watson, if you give him 3 yards of separation, he's going to give you some big plays.
Man, I always laugh. I watch the game with my dad sometimes, and when I get an opportunity to, and I be sitting there laughing. I'm like, man, have you seen Donovan Peoples-Jones ever wide open? I'll give him credit. The balls that he does catch, I mean, there's guys blanketing him. There's guys over his back. He's always on the ground catching the ball. He always got to. I'm like, man, he always seemed like he slide into second base. This guy's on the ground is more than the shortstop and the second baseman. I mean, he does not generate a lot of separation. What he does do well is use his body and box people out like a 6'4" guy in the post with 7-footers. You got to put your rear end into him, and I think Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of does that. Amari Cooper is not what we call a burner. He gets his separation at the last minute, because he's running. It looks like he's running the same route for the first 7 yards of every single route he runs, and then he either cuts left, cuts right, gets on top, goes for a fade. So you don't really know what he's gonna run, and he doesn't get what we would call that downfield separation either. But when you got a guy like Elijah Moore who's crafty, moves inside, outside, a lot of motion. I've always wanted this for our squad. I would watch the Kansas City Chiefs, and they'd have the same. It looked like they got the same guy out there. Everybody looked like they Tyreek Hill, or Tyreek Hill Jr. And I'm like, how many small guys are you running around? And our linebackers and they're just open. And then Kelsey's behind them, and another layer just open. I said, man, why can't we get that? Elijah Moore is finally our guy to run around and throw these little passes and annoy defenders all season long. So I'm excited for it. I just can't wait to see what kind of little routes and pick plays and rub plays they come up with this guy, because he can get some separation.
Yep, and once he gets in the free, he can take it all the way. This is from Sports Illustrated. Each AFC team's most underrated player heading into 2023. And for the Browns, another guy we've talked about, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Master of the contested catch situations. While he is not going to maximize everything that occurs after the catch, there is something to be said for someone who is so doggedly dependable. And G. Bush, I've said this in the past. He's a guy that all good teams have. If you need 6 yards, it's 6 yards, and he's going to catch the ball.
Yeah, we kind of laughed and joked about it. It seems like there's always somebody underneath him or under his elbows, or there's somebody right by his left ear. You're like, dang, man. But guess what? He caught the ball. He moved the sticks. And he does it. For a guy who is not very, what I would call elusive, he's a pretty good punt returner. He'll catch the ball back there too. You don't see wide receivers that are in your starting rotation or your top 2 deep going back there returning punts, but he does a really good job returning one last year. I think he is. I think he's really dependable, and I think one of the things is we don't want to put the cart before the horse. There's a lot of people who've already fast forwarded this year talking about whether or not Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be on the roster or not. I think we need to pump the brakes on a lot of these contract talks for so long. You wait all year to watch these games, and you wait, and every game one of 17. They're so impactful. I think sometimes we get stuck in off-season mode and start to think about 3, 4, 5 years down the road instead of looking at how he fits in today. I think today, if you look at the Browns receiving core, I would say it is a vote of confidence for Donovan Peoples-Jones that the Browns really was like, okay, we'll look at DeAndre Hopkins, but I mean, if he wants to come, we'll talk, but it wasn't like they were going out of his way to say we need DeAndre Hopkins or we're going to lose or whatever, or we're not going to be contenders. I think they like what he can do underneath. I think he serves a role. I think he is a chain mover, and I think he'll have a great part of this offense because, once again, you got something for everybody out there. You got the route runner in Cooper. You got the quick guy that could get vertical in Elijah Moore. And then you got the big body guy catch, and you got a vertical threat in Njoku, and still a nice running game. So everybody should get an opportunity. It's just all about making the plays when the ball comes to you.
Yeah, and it's going to be game plan specific. It's what matchup do we get that we think we can exploit on any given week. And, now there's options without question. With Deshaun Watson, he's going to have some options. G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at post-minicamp power rankings. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. This from Pro Football Network, post-minicamp power rankings, Tier 1, the elite teams. They go first the Chiefs, second the Eagles, third the Bengals, fourth the Bills. Third tier, the Bones are good. 15, the Chargers, 16, the Browns, Patriots, 17, Steelers, 18, Commanders, Panthers, Vikings. Cleveland's ceiling much higher than the 16th best, but they need Deshaun Watson to look like the one we saw for years on the field for the Houston Texans. And G. Bush, I think 16 is kind of low. I think it's really low. I get the questions about Deshaun Watson. The Browns don't need Deshaun Watson to be as good as he was with the Texans, where he was arguably a top 5. If he is top 10, they're contending for the AFC because you've got Nick Chubb. You've got this defense that I think people are sleeping on the defense a little bit.
Oh, they sleeping on. There's a lot they sleeping on. And somebody has to really the only justification for having the Browns this low in some of these polls is the fact that, it's fatigue and it's history, right? And I get that. But, every year to year is different, right? We know that in baseball. Like, if you got a great bullpen one year, that doesn't mean the next year you come back with the same exact bullpen. You could be horrible in the bullpen, right? Same with turnovers. You can't say, we're great at getting turnovers. No, you were great at getting turnovers last year. What are you going to do this year? Because that number does not necessarily translate to a year-to-year thing. Turnovers are quirky like that. So if you're looking at it, the only way you can be that down on the Browns is just you're just fatigued about hearing about them, but not really. They don't give you the payoff, right? We've heard about you guys having talent on paper. The payoff isn't there. So now I'm just going to go the opposite way and just say I'm going to pump the brakes on the Browns in general and kind of wait to see what they'll do. But that's really not what the exercise is about. The exercise is to say, where did they stand after what you saw in the postseason, in the OTAs? And guess what? Mini camps, by all intents and purposes, everyone talked about the way Deshaun Watson looked night and day. Looked like he had one of his best days this year in terms of people wowing, saying, wow, we haven't seen that play. We haven't seen this and that. And also, let's be clear. Pro Football Focus rates Nick Chubb the best running back in the league. They rate Myles Garrett as the best defensive end in the league. They rate Joe Bitonio as one of the top 3 offensive linemen in terms of interior linemen in the league. They also have as a cumulative grade the 3 corners from Newsom, Ward, and Emerson as a top 10 group back there as well. And you already got Zadarius Smith, you added Tomlinson. We're not going to talk about all the other guys you added. And my thing is, if you got all those top flight guys at each and every position, and we're not talking about 5 receivers, we're talking about number 1. You got to be higher than 16 by default, or with who's just still on the roster.
I'm with you. The thing that I will find really interesting, they're going to have joint practices with the Eagles. If it comes out of those joint practices, boy, this Browns defensive line is, because the Eagles offensive line is as good as the Browns. If you start hearing whispers about the Browns defensive line after those joint practices from the Philadelphia folks, get ready. It's going to be a fun football season.
That's what we're looking forward to, especially comparing them to the Eagles, because they're going to get a up close to front look at probably one of the best defensive lines in the league in the Eagles. And if the Browns coming out of that looking good, watch out.
Yep, I'm with you. Along those lines, so Pro Football Focus, NFL secondary rankings. They have the Jets 1, the Dolphins 2, Eagles 3, Broncos, Ravens, Cowboys, Chiefs. They have the Browns at 8. Again, I think it's a little low, but that's all right. Ward, Emerson, Newsome, Thornhill, Grant, Delpit. You also have Rodney McLeod in there. Offseason signing of Juan Thornhill earned a 75.2 coverage grade last season. Should be a substantial upgrade to the safety room. The switch to Jim Schwartz as defensive coordinator should produce a better coached group. I can tell you this, they're going to be a little bit more aggressive up front, and that's going to make the secondary not have to do as much work.
Yeah, and, I had an opportunity to talk to Greg Newsome on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and we asked him about, playing in the slot, the difference between playing in the slot and playing outside. And he just explained, hey, listen, last year playing in the slot, there was a lot of games where 60 to 65, 70% of the time, I'm in the run fits. And what that just basically means is if you take a linebacker out to insert a nickel, which is a cornerback that's going to play in the slot, that guy has responsibilities in the run game. So he's basically taking the position of a Will linebacker or a Sam linebacker, if you whatever way you want to look at it, to the field. And he has the same run responsibilities as in turning the ball back in, where he fits what gap he has. If it's a run, all of those things play a role. And he's saying, now I'm not in the run fit like that, because, when you're asking a guy a slight frame like him, he's like, I don't have a problem tackling, but just come on. Like I'm a smaller frame guy. And if I'm up there 50, 60% of the time making those tackles, do you really want me being the size I am, making those tackles on the Derrick Henrys of the world and the Jonathan Taylors of the world? Nah, I'm cool. Like I'm a cover guy. We know where our bread's buttered. So I thought that was a little bit of an insight, because it just goes to show you can line up in a lot of different ways, and when you compare the scheme of what one coach is doing compared to what another coach do, it could really pay dividends, and it really can show what kind of a coach you have, because you can put your players in the wrong position and it's not going to look good. And the Browns' run defense did not look good at all last year.
Yep. Yeah, historically bad, I would say. All right, this from the Bleacher Report. 6 NFL players most likely to face contract disputes next season. This from the Bleacher Report. They say Jedrick Wills. Browns already have a few major financial commitments on the books. Deshaun Watson is the obvious one. Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, both top of the market deals. SpotTrack projects 4 years, $75.9 million contract right now. Well, he's under contract for 2 more years, and it's pretty simple. If he elevates his play and looks like a really good tackle, he's going to be here. If he plays the way he has, he's probably not going to be here. I don't think there's going to be too much dispute.
Yeah, that's the thing with offensive linemen. It's really cut and dry. It ain't like with a quarterback, you could take a look at, like, okay, is he a young quarterback? What is the offensive coordinator asking him to do? What is his skill set? Like, you can really evaluate and be kind of a conundrum a little bit. If you're talking about, Daniel Jones comes to mind. He's a guy who you didn't really think the first 4 years he lived up to a first round pick, but he had a year last year where I believe he won a playoff game, and is a guy who took his team to the playoffs. So he ends up getting another contract because of that last year. Now, when you're talking about the rest of the roster, especially offensive linemen, it's either cut and dry. Like, it ain't no middle ground. Like, either you worthy of an extension of that caliber and that type of money, or they're gonna let you walk, right? So there's all kind of guys that they let walk. And think about it like this: the Browns let Mitchell Schwartz walk. Now, think about that was a couple of regimes ago. But look what Mitchell Schwartz went on to do outside of Berea and Cleveland, Ohio. He went out there to Kansas City, had a great career, won a Super Bowl. But that just goes to show you how high of a caliber of ball player you got to actually be in order for them to give you that type of money. Because whoever's up next, they're going to be slotted to get Trent Williams money? No. No, we can't do that. And you already have a guy in Conklin who's kind of injury prone a little bit too. I don't know if you can allocate that much cap space to guys that aren't really, I guess, moving the needle like that.
Yeah, the other thing is when you have good players, you have to make those kind of decisions. You know, that the fortunate thing is there's a lot of guys that are pretty good football players now. That is a better problem to have than the one we've had for a number of years where, you know, we can't get enough guys to get to the right cap number.
Right.
All right, this before I let you go, this by Dogs by Nature, and they ask a question. Is Browns wide receiver David Bell a potential training camp cut?
Yeah, that's a reality. And I'll tell you why. When you bring in guys and give them money, like Goodwin came in and got money, and it's guaranteed money. He also has something that Bell doesn't have, which is, Olympic type speed. The problem for David Bell is he's in between a rock and a hard place. They've already basically went out and drafted a guy, that Tillman, that is, guess what? They drafted him. They're not getting rid of him this year. You look at it, Amari Cooper is a lock to make the team. They traded for Elijah Moore. Guess what? That's a lock in. Goodwin, we already mentioned, that's 4 right there. Donovan Peoples-Jones is 5 right there. And did I even say Amari Cooper yet? I don't think I did. That's 6 receivers right there. And you got Anthony Schwartz, who does bring something different to the table too. Now, he can't catch, and he's been horrific. But let him catch 3 or 4 footballs and look good. All of a sudden, that speed becomes intoxicating. All of a sudden, you'll overlook something if you can see Anthony Schwartz streaming down the sideline on a 70-yard pass. All of a sudden, people's like, well, man, the light has gone on for Anthony Schwartz. It's, can you believe it? They got all this. Can you believe it? He worked so hard. He went to, he went to his own trainer. He really went back to his roots. And no, he caught 3 footballs and he's fast. So David Bell, yeah, they like you too. But if you're David Bell, you can't pull a hamstring.
Yep.
Do not have turf toe. You might want to play special teams. You should just be at the facility as we speak, just with a cot and like a bunk bed system. Like, I'm not leaving. I get free meals here. He is. I mean, we'll see what he got, but he's in contention for it. Yeah,
and you better catch everything like you did last year. He got hurt last year early, kind of fell behind. The other thing is he's a guy that could end up on the practice squad just because of the numbers.
It's crazy to make it 1 year.
Yeah.
The year his rookie get catches, then he'll go back to the practice squad. Probably happens a lot. It's just a kind of it's an unbeaten path, an unwalked path, and usually it's the other way around.
Yep, I'm with you. G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, G. Bush.
Appreciate you. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. G. Bush. Make sure you check him out, 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, 8 until noon on Saturday. You can also catch him on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 to 1. Monday through Friday. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland with a film analysis of the Browns defense. We're going to take a look at how the linebackers in a Jim Schwartz system are supposed to play. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Last week, we looked what Jim Schwartz's defensive line might look like by comparing it to the Super Bowl team, the 2017 Eagles that Schwartz coached. This week, we take a look at the linebacking core. Whenever we do film analysis or a video breakdown, we welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Lance, so we're going to take a look at the style of play relative to the linebackers. Take us through what you saw when you were looking at the tape of this Philadelphia Eagles linebacking core that we think the Browns will be modeled somewhat after?
Well, a lot of things you've heard over the last 2 months, you've heard, are the Browns linebackers big enough? And then what will the scheme change? How will that affect them? What will that do? Well, there's a couple things that I noticed when you watch the Eagles defense. First of all, their linebackers play forward. So, playing the term I've heard a bunch is playing fast and playing physical. And what that means to me is that those linebackers under Jim Schwartz do not have to think as much. They don't have to read those double teams, those down blocks, those schematic things. So if they're in charge of a gap, they're taking that gap. They're anticipating those defensive linemen getting upfield into their gap. There is not a lot of two-gapping. There's not a lot of playing on the line of scrimmage. They like to recreate that line of scrimmage, so defensive linemen. And by recreating that line of scrimmage, it leaves these lanes. It leaves these alleys for these linebackers. And over from the 2017 film, you're going to see these defensive linemen, Fletcher Cox, and these guys get upfield, and then these linebackers are running through these lanes unblocked. I think the scheme fits perfectly for the undersized linebackers of the Browns because they run so well. They got to tackle in space. They got to get through things. They got to get through some traffic inside. But this scheme allows them to do what they do well, which is run. And they're not going to wait for that double team. So many times last year, you play along the line of scrimmage, that double team comes, they couldn't get out of the way because they're so small. Now they're not waiting, they're going. So I think it's a good scheme for the Browns linebackers.
Yeah, the quickness and athleticism seems to be what is a premium. So take us through this first clip. What are we looking at here?
Well, Nigel Bradham, number 53, is a really good linebacker, unheralded, but he kind of fits what Schwartz does well. So a couple of things here. First of all, it's Schwartz being really smart. So he has Fletcher Cox to the left at the bottom of the screen at the 3 technique. From Cox being on the left side, the center has to slide to his right to help his guard. So by the center sliding to the right guard will take B gap, the center will take A gap, and they double team Fletcher Cox. By doing that, it puts the smaller running back on the linebacker. And Nigel Bradham, you'll see him, he does it a ton, but he runs right through the running back. And most linebackers at the NFL level, if they get a running start, they're going to dominate a running back. And this is a classic case of Schwartz. 3rd and 5, he's going to only bring 5. He's going to show a different look, but he's bringing 5, and he's isolated. Talk about matchups. Now he's isolated and found a matchup for his big linebacker. And that linebacker beats the running back, and this is what you see over and over with either D linemen or linebackers, is finding those matchups. So this is great job by Schwartz, great job by this linebacker coming, and this linebacker does a really good job of both the run and pass game.
Yeah, the other thing that you notice is that line is engaging 4 yards in the backfield as the quarterback drops back, and that is a noticeable difference as well, that they're kind of recreating that line of scrimmage that we talked about last week. Even in pass sets, it's 4 yards behind where the line of scrimmage is, where they're engaging.
Well, when you watch the film from 17 and you watch the Browns from last year, or a lot of NFL defenses that play along the line of scrimmage, the thing that you notice about, I don't care if you've ever watched a film in your life, the Eagles defense from 2017 is very mean. They play upfield. They play with a sense of nastiness. So those defensive linemen, they're not waiting to get double. They're not worrying about their technique as much. Now, they do a lot of that. It's the NFL. But what they're really worried about is getting off the football, recreating that line of scrimmage, and getting through those gaps. And by getting through those gaps, they mess up pullers. They mess up double teams. They mess up pass protection schemes. And more importantly, they just play with a sense of urgency and an edge that gives them, that allow them to play such great defense. I mean, in 2017 they were number 1 against the run, and they did it by sheer getting upfield and outnumbering linemen and just running to the football.
All right, another clip. What are we seeing in the second clip?
Well, right here you got, this is first and foremost, like you said, you get the recreation of the line of scrimmage. Now, what you get is you get the start of the play. You're going to see Brandon Graham. He's going to be right there, just missed the tackle. But what he does by taking that inside gap is that he blows up the play. As you can see, by him getting upfield, the rest of the defensive linemen getting upfield. So by the time the running back gets touched, they're 3 yards in the backfield. By him getting upfield and making that running back go sideways and go wide, it allows the middle linebacker, Bradham, to just run. So he doesn't have to worry about a double team coming. He doesn't have to worry about anything else. He just knows the play's going wide. Brandon Graham has made it go wide. And Brandon Graham knows that's okay because the rest of his teammates are coming. And this is kind of what the Eagles do. You're going to see lots of guys running through gaps, lots of guys getting in the backfield, recreating line of scrimmage. They cause a lot of havoc, a lot of tackles for a loss, a lot of sacks. This is pretty normal. And again, the middle linebacker gets to run free, and that's what the Browns linebackers do really well. They run great in space.
The other thing is the way Jim Schwartz's defense was described is he creates chaos at the line of scrimmage, and you can. That's a perfect example of it. The blocking scheme there was kind of blown up by the guy getting in the backfield, and it was chaos for the offensive line.
Well, I love the idea with the Schwartz scheme is that they're trying to get to the football first. So they're mad at their teammates if they don't beat their teammates to the ball. It's a team game, you can see there is a sense of urgency to get to the ball carrier. Guys are flying all over the place. They're getting blocked. They don't care. They take things on they don't avoid contact. There's constant, that chaos. It means there's constant contact. There is a extreme desire to get to the football. Again, every snap you watch from 17, whether they give up the play or not, there is 2 or 3 guys 3 yards in the backfield almost on every play. And that chaos, that's what it does. It throws off blocking schemes, and then you're kind of just stuck. And the Browns have people that can do these things. They have people that can do these things very, very well.
Let's take a look at the third clip and take us through what you see here.
So here's a great example. Here's a pin and pull. I found a pin and pull scheme that you can't even tell it's a pin and pull scheme. So what has happened is that the Cowboys are going to pull both their center and their left guard, but Curry, the big defensive tackle that year, he's going to get upfield and he's going to throw off both of those pullers. Now, by throwing off both of those pullers, again, it allows Bradham, the middle linebacker, and Nigel Good, to run free. And Good, who's a play side linebacker up front, doesn't even have a hat blocking him because of Curry getting upfield. So again, team defense. Curry's job is to penetrate that C gap. He slants hard in that C gap, causes big tight end to block him, but the tight end blocks him 3 yards upfield. It just kind of creates a mess. The guards can't get out. You don't even know it's a pin and pull scheme until you watch it a number of times here. You can see those guards and centers get thrown off. This is what the Eagles do. This is what Schwartz wants. This is what the Browns linebackers do. You think about the Browns defense man. Myles Garrett can do this very, very well. Tight ends can't block him. He can cause havoc inside and have those linebackers run around. So this is a scheme that fits not only what the personnel they had, the personnel they brought in. This scheme really fits.
And again, you're seeing line of scrimmage, and that's a run play, and the line of scrimmage is being recreated 3-4 yards in the backfield. So let's take a look at the fourth and final clip that we're going to take a look at and tell us what we see here.
So again, you're going to see Curry kind of mess up the play here. So you're seeing in the backfield, doesn't get blocked. The tight end is hooking him. However, the tight end is hooking him 5 yards in the backfield. So by hooking him 5 yards in the backfield, the running back has to go real wide. Now, what the Eagles did really well in 17, what the Browns do really well personnel-wise is they run. So against this Bradham, that middle linebacker who I really liked on film, once again, he's running free. And he's running free in space. And when you run free in space, it's hard to block. It's hard for those big linemen to block those linebackers and those smaller athletic guys in space. And this is a classic case of Curry gets the play going. He doesn't get his name in the box score, but 75 right there is the guy who makes the play because then it allows his teammates to run and make the play. They constantly do this. Again, it doesn't matter if it's run or pass. Everything is the same in the Sports defense. They're getting down. They're getting set. Everything is simple. Those linebackers don't have to read too much. They don't have to worry about double teams. If they're in charge of a gap, they go. So once Bradham reads this and reads that guard try to get to him, he's just gone. And then a guard can't block him in space. Browns linebackers should be very tough to block in space as well. So this is a great look at what the Browns do, what you should see with the Browns a lot. Guys in the backfield consistently getting penetration.
As I'm watching this, two things kind of strike me. If you're a player who has the speed and athleticism, man, do you want to play in this scheme because you can really create havoc. And this defense, what I have said all along, I want a defense that dictates things. This defense will dictate what an offense is going to do. They're not waiting to see. The mindset is you're going to have to deal with us.
Well, if you look at he's a disciple of Bill Belichick, but Belichick is a two-gap guy. So those offensive linemen. So if I'm a three technique, I'm in charge of B gap. And when they had Vince Wilfork and those guys, that big, huge guy is going to sit in there and he's going to take on the guard, he's going to take on the tackle, and he's going to stay right in that B gap. Well, what Schwartz does, he says, okay, we're in charge of B gap, but we're going to blow that B gap. We're going to get in that B gap. We're going to get in a wide three, and we're going to make you, if you double us, it's really hard to double because they're not waiting. And you said it right. Schwartz is a dictator, so he's going to dictate what the offense does, not vice versa. And that's a different philosophy than what the Browns have had in the past. Multiple teams have had success with both ways, playing along on scrimmage, 2 gapping, being 1 gapping. I think with the Browns personnel, their defensive line, their ability to run, they're guys who are so versatile, being able to play linebacker and off the edge, and Delpit, who can come down in the box. Juan Thornhill can come down in the box. These guys they've drafted, they have guys that can do different things, which should make them very dangerous on defense. But again, they can run, and he doesn't care what the down distance is. So a lot of times you're going to see defenses that are different with down and distance. Not in the Schwartz defense. They're getting down and set and they're penetrating, regardless of down and distance.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me. Lance
Reisland, always really good video analysis, film breakdown, taking a look at what this Browns defense under Jim Schwartz is going to look like. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. This is from Dawg Pound Daily. Casey Kinnamon wrote an article, 3 burning questions the Browns must answer during training camp. Number 1, can they count on Cade York? Number 2, are the Browns set at defensive tackle? And also, do the Browns have enough behind Nick Chubb at running back? Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Pound Daily. Casey, when you kind of go through that, the Cade York question is a fair one. You're not going to know till the games, are you?
No, but they might get an inkling behind the scenes, seeing how he's striking the ball, because his rookie season was a roller coaster. This time last year, we were all excited. We were hearing out of training camp how the ball was just exploding off his foot, and you saw these clips coming through, and he was nailing 60-yarders, and then his first game comes, he hits a 58-yard game-winning field goal. We were feeling pretty good about him. And then he went through the yips. It wasn't the fact that he was just missing field goals, that there was a less than 0% chance the second the ball left his foot many times. He wasn't just misjudging the wind. So he was kind of in his own head and had to recalibrate. And, I think he made like 75% of his field goals. They need that number to be in the mid 80s, just to be realistic, and as much as the Browns are all in 23, they cannot afford to let the fact that they drafted a kicker allow them to lose games. No matter how much offensive firepower they added or the defensive, adjustments they've made, these games come down to, 3 or 4 plays most of the time. And a lot of those times that falls on the leg of your kicker. So they have to feel confident going with Cade York into the season. If not, they have to at least have a contingency plan in place.
Yeah, that's fair. Defensive tackle is another one. And I guess the question I have with that is, can we expect the defensive tackles to improve that were here because of what Jim Schwartz is going to ask them to do? Are they going to be put in better situations? Maybe that's a better way of phrasing it.
You would absolutely think they would be. But, this problem is going back 2 years where they were going into seasons banking on someone taking a step, and as we saw last year, that just didn't happen. So it's something they can't bank on. They did work in the defensive tackle room, which we got to be grateful for that, because last year that didn't happen. You go get a Dalvin Tomlinson, a bona fide starter. You draft a guy in Ika who brings something new to the table. He's a huge body. You got a couple scratch off lottery tickets in Maurice Hurst and Tristan Hill, and if one of those players turns out, then we're in a much better place. But they're going to get to find out through training camp. You're going up against the Browns offensive line day in, day out. That's a great test. But that August 17th preseason game, the week leading up to that Eagles game, they're going to Philly for joint practices. They're going to know whether they're stout enough up front by the time they leave those practices.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you're starting to hear whisperings about how good the Browns defensive line or defense is after those joint practices, could be that's a really good sign for the season. I would agree. and then do they have enough behind Nick Chubb? The Browns clearly like what they have in Jerome Ford.
Yeah, and it's going to be the Jerome Ford show this preseason. He's going to get all those reps and all those opportunities. People were kind of down on him, which is puzzling to me because he just flat out didn't have the opportunities to show what he could do last year. He was behind Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. You know, he was a fourth-string running back. It is what it is. He was returning kickoffs. And from all indications, he's going to be doing that again. You know, that's going to be one way he can get involved. But he needs to show that he can step in at a moment's notice and the offense can function with him in it, because if Chubb goes out for any reason, that's the guy you're going to be banking on. Yeah. And they may even decide that that's the role they want him in, just to be the backup bell cow, and they might have to go find a third down back, or he might occupy that space. You know, this training camp is going to be huge for Jerome Ford.
Yeah, especially those games and the joint practices. He needs to show that, you know, that what they believe in him is true. 10 players who could increase their receiving target totals 2023 from PFF. Elijah Moore. Well, yeah. Alongside established targets, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and a full season to work with Deshaun Watson, Moore should seamlessly slot in as the second or third receiving option with the ability to win at all three levels of the field. Casey, a couple of the guests, and I would agree with them, I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team in receptions. I don't know that he's going to lead the team in yards or touchdowns, but he is a guy they feel needs to get the quote-unquote touches.
Yeah, he's an excellent candidate for this list based on what he did in New York. When you go back and watching, when Zach Wilson was on the field last year with Elijah Moore, he was basically just getting cardio in, just out there running routes just to run routes. I think he had like 17 or 19 targets with Wilson, and that's not going to happen. He'll eclipse that in 2 games in this offense, just based on the fact they have a plan for him. And we focus so much on, well, this team needs deep speed to stretch the defense, and that's true. But what they really need is cheap, easy yards, and I think Moore is going to be that guy. They're going to look for ways to get the ball in his hands easy and make him, you know, give him the opportunity to make a defender miss and make defenses pay. So, yeah, I would fully expect him to be around that 90 target mark if he's able to play all 17 games.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think I think he would get that quickly. This is from BetJack, a tweet. David Njoku will catch blank touchdown passes this season. I have an idea in mind. I have a range. What are your thoughts there?
When I think of it, when I'm going to say the number, it's going to sound low, you know, but I'm just trying to temper my expectations and try to be realistic. I think 6 is a number that I would kind of feel comfortable with. That sounds low. That would also be a career high. You know, he's had 4 several times, but I think, you know, 6 to 8 would probably be the range for me. And if it, you know, I think he's just such a valuable target when you get inside that 30-yard mark, just because of his ability to get up the seam and be big and high point the ball and those kind of things. I think that should be his floor, 6 touchdowns this season.
Yeah, I had 5 to 9 as the range, and again, Deshaun Watson, when he's going well, he likes to hit tight ends. The seam route is something that we're going to learn to like a lot, I have a feeling. All right, this is from the Bleacher Report. Free agent alternatives to Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins. For running backs, they go James Robinson and Dontrell Hilliard. And wide receivers, they go Rashard Higgins and Byron Pringle. And I got nothing against Rashard Higgins. I got a hard pass on both of those wide receivers. I don't think either of them could make the team.
Well, that's exactly where I'm at. If the Browns are going to move on from players they've drafted, they're not going to do it for replacement level guys like those guys. They're not going to move on from someone they have draft capital invested in just to let someone else ride the bench. They would let the guys they drafted ride the bench so they can develop them. The running backs, though, are intriguing on there. Like, I've always liked James Robinson. I'm just skeptical that he's healthy. He signed a 2-year contract with the Patriots this offseason, and they released him on the first day of minicamp, which is typically when you get your physicals done. Yeah. So that leads me to believe they saw something they didn't like, and they got out from underneath of it. There was no guarantees. Hilliard's intriguing, though. That's a guy he knows what it takes to be a professional, a backup in this league, and he's been behind Derrick Henry. He knows the deal. You know, he knows when there's a bell cow. You got to be ready for your opportunities. And he's also someone who's came into his own as a receiving back. 78 targets over his career, but 52 of those have come over the last 2 seasons. and he caught 4 touchdowns last year. I mean, I think that would be a role that he could fulfill.
Yeah, if they're going to bring in a back that's a veteran, I think it's probably going to be somebody that excels in the passing game a little bit more than who they have. We've talked about Drake, Kenyon Drake, J.D. McKissick has been brought up. Those are all names that make sense. And that market isn't going to shake out for a while because nobody is signing free agent running backs.
No, and that's a replacement level type thing. Running backs become available, and it's also something that as we get through camp, there's probably more running backs, veterans that will become available just because of the way it works. If someone gets a UDFA that shows that they can do it, it's a cheap option. That pushes another guy out into the market. So there'll be people available if they're looking for someone to fulfill that role.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, 3 Browns with something to prove in 2023. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. 3 Browns with something to prove in 2023. This from Sports Illustrated. They go Jedrick Wills, put some good plays on tape and has strung together good weeks, but never really been able to do it over the course of a season. In 2023, Wills will once again have a chance to do that. Deshaun Watson. Browns don't need Deshaun Watson to come out and throw 40 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions or something like that. They need him to be their franchise quarterback and the guy that can go win the football games late. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Perrion Winfrey. Winfrey not able to get out of his own way early in his career, came out of college as a guy that talked too much and didn't back it up on the field, has had some off-field issues that have gotten in the way, and has not adjusted to being a pro very well. Casey, I agree with all of those. Wills will have the opportunity, and again, he doesn't have to be the top 10 draft pick that they took him. He's got to be an above-average left tackle.
For me, it always comes down to consistency with him because he'll have good plays. It's just there's too much inconsistency, and a lot of it's tied to his health. He needs to stay healthy. He seems to suffer ankle injuries frequently, and it affects his play. He's able to gut it out and be on the field, but then you'll see the tape during those games, and it's obvious he's playing wounded. And the Browns have a couple guys in the pipeline now. This will be Hudson's 3rd year. You go draft a DeJuan Jones, see what they have in him. It might make them feel comfortable about moving on from Wills. But, we always kind of overlook this because he's been there, and this is his 4th season now. He turned 24 last month. He's still an extremely young man. It could all come together. And if he's able to put, consistent effort on tape and improve in the run game just a little bit, I think it's someone that they could offer a contract to. Because keep in mind, I know he signed his 5th-year option, but if he struggles this year, there's no guarantee that he's here next year.
Yep, I would agree. Watson, the point that they make is spot on. He doesn't have to be the throw for 5,000. That'd be great. But he's got to be the guy that you feel comfortable late in the game. You want the opponents to say, oh, Watson has the ball and there's 3 minutes on the clock. We're in trouble.
Yeah, I will say this. If 40 touchdowns and 7 interceptions is on the table, sign me up. That'd be something I'm definitely interested in. But, yeah, he doesn't need to do all that for this team to be successful. But he needs to be the reason why teams are afraid of the Browns, like you just said. That needs to be he needs to be able to play well enough and bring this team with him to where defenses fear him, and they have to do everything they can to keep the ball out of his hands. And he's going to have the opportunity to do it. He has the weapons in place, the lines in place, everything's in front of him, and he just needs to be the engine. That engine doesn't need to have insane stats, but it needs to be something that the teams have to fear.
And as far as Winfrey goes, he's got to be a guy we start talking about his play on the field and not all the other stuff, because we're talking about all the other stuff and not him on the field right now.
He's so lucky that there's a new coaching staff, that he's getting a fresh slate, and if he can just do something with his opportunities, if he can become someone who gets a high pressure rate on the opportunities he gets, he can carve a little niche out for himself and get a career in this league. But if he's unable to do that, he's not going to be here for very long, because be who you can afford to be. And right now he's acting like he's something, a Warren Sapp or something. And that, you have to go out there and prove it. This is the man's league, and he hasn't done anything to instill confidence in his coaching staff as of yet.
All right, before I let you go, one non-quarterback each team can least afford to lose. Browns, they say Myles Garrett. Deshaun Watson were to lose Amari Cooper. He could be in big trouble with Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones suited for secondary roles. But is the Browns' defense without Myles Garrett, who single-handedly terrorized opponents? I would say they're better equipped to handle it this year with Smith, Okonkwo, Tomlinson, and Jim Schwartz. But I get their point.
Yeah, the point stands. They're in a much better place, but Myles Garrett's one of those rare players. He's what I refer to as a whiteboard player. Every week when you play a team, your offensive meeting goes, your offensive coordinator's up front. 95 is going to be written on that board with a star and a circle. He's a game wrecker. And any second that you're forcing the opposition to focus on you, they can't work on themselves. And Myles Garrett's one of those guys. But I also believe Za'Darius is another. I think that they're both game wreckers, so they'd be in a better spot. But losing Myles Garrett would never be good.
Casey Kinnamon, Dawg Pound Daily, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. You guys have a great weekend.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff, Dawg Pound Daily. Each week, in conjunction with the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program, we recognize a role model student from somewhere across the state of Ohio. Today, we head to Stowe Monroe Falls High School to meet Natalie Pigman. Not only getting it done in the classroom, one of the best debaters in the state of Ohio. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is proud to salute Stowe Monroe Falls High School's Natalie Pigman, this week's Shining Star. Stowe Monroe Falls senior Natalie Pigman is a leader at the high school, one of the tops academically in the classroom, a star on the debate team, and as a trumpet player, Natalie's one of the leaders of the band.
I definitely would say leadership skills. I have really grown throughout my years in band. Originally, I wouldn't say I was the most involved in my freshman year. I was kind of more shy and wasn't really involved, but over time I realized how important it was and how important it was to me to lead and show all of the younger kids what they need to do. So I've taken on leadership roles. I've been squad leader, I've been the section leader of the trumpets, and shown them what it means to lead other people and be a good, positive role model.
Pigman has been named the Young Award winner as the most inspirational public forum debater at Stowe Monroe Falls the last 2 years, and is getting ready in a couple of weeks to head to Phoenix, Arizona for the National High School Speech and Debate Competition.
My best friend is Faith. Her older sister did debate, but she was a senior and her partner had graduated the last year, so she was partnerless. And I was like, hey, Allie, can I be your partner next year? Because I was really interested in debate. So then Allie ended up teaching me all about debate, and I just loved it so much, so I kept doing it, and I found a new partner.
The skills Natalie has learned from the experience in speech and debate are ones she values greatly.
You have to prepare a topic every single month, and you go to debate tournaments every Saturday. So we were constantly preparing the topics, and they were always something very interesting, though, so it was very useful, and it was the research skills I had from that was really amazing. It's really the research skills that's helped me the most in school, being able to research and write, because we have to write cases and write speeches, and then speech and debate has helped me speak better, of course, in front of audiences, so that's helped with school projects and just being more comfortable talking.
Her experience in debate had Natalie possibly interested in pursuing a career in law, but that's changed recently.
I was between either going into the law track, because I've done debate throughout high school, and that's something I loved, but I decided that I liked healthcare more and I wanted to help people that way.
Natalie is one of those students that has a dedication to learning. She truly wants to learn. She is self-motivated to learn, and she has the work ethic to get everything done. She always has her work done on time and done very thoroughly, done very well. And that's why she does so well in the classroom.
Natalie's interest in healthcare was piqued by a personal experience.
I've kind of dealt with severe allergies throughout my life. Originally, it was kind of middle school. I realized I'm never feeling good, and so we went and we got a lot of different allergy tests, and I realized I'm allergic to a lot of like outdoor things and then indoor. And so I got with an allergist and I started taking immunotherapy, and that's really helped me. And that entire thing has interested me in how that works and how all of the treatment works. So that really sparked my interest. And originally I was like, I love this and I want to become an allergist. This is so cool. And that's kind of diverged into what other opportunities are there in healthcare and what can I research and find out about and what can I, like new treatments I could make for people.
With that in mind, Natalie's choice for college next year became pretty obvious to her.
Ohio State, number one. I've always been a huge fan of Ohio State. My family is like very big football fans, so I love that. But also, they have the medical laboratory science program, which I'm pretty sure no other school in Ohio has a specific program for medical laboratory science, and that's something I'm very interested in. And I honestly just found that through searches into careers. When I was in my junior year of high school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, so I was looking online and I was looking at a lot of different healthcare jobs and stuff like that because that's what I'm really interested in.
Because of all her advanced placement courses, Natalie has plenty of college credits already earned when she arrives at Ohio State. If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star.
All out of time on this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.